Hey everybody, and welcome back to Mission Control for a feature-focused video. In this video, we're talking about queue list tracking. By default, all queue lists created in Titan will track. These can be on or off on both a per queue list or per queue basis. Tracking means that only changes made from the current queue to the next one will be recorded, no matter what record mode you're in. So if you locate some fixtures, then apply a position and color palette and record Q1, that only change to a different position and record to Q2, the color information will not be re-recorded in Q2, only the position information as it is different. This means if you change the color information in Q1, Q2 will also be updated as the value is tracking through. It also means that dimmer values become LTP values in the queue lists, and that they remain in the last given value until a new one is recorded. You do not need to press clear in between queues, as pressing clear is not the same as putting everything to a zero dimmer value. If you turn tracking off, then everything in the program will be recorded into every queue, and the only information actually contained in the queue will be shown on stage. When using Quick Build to construct a queue list, it is recommended that you turn tracking off for the queue list so you see just the information for each queue. Go to Options and set tracking to off. Tracking and record by channel is a traditional method that HOG and MA users will be familiar with, but tracking while record by fixture is also a very powerful tool. It means that when starting a queue list or when introducing new fixtures to a queue, you do not need to touch all their values to ensure that the fixtures will always start in exactly that state. Once you have introduced a fixture, the same rule of tracking applies, only changes you make will be recorded. Tracking is turned on by default in a queue list, as well as standard tracking. You can set individual queues to the following options. Global will follow the global setting defined under the options. Track will force the queue to track even if the playback option is off. Block will stop all previous tracked values and start again. Solo, excluding shapes. No states are tracked into or out of the queue, but shapes will track into the queue, except for dimmer shapes, which will not track. This lets you have a queue that solos all levels, but allows non-dimmer shapes to continue. Queue only, tracked values output in the queue, but the contents of the queue will not track forwards. Solo will not output tracked values, only the contents of the queue. However, when the next queue is fired, the tracked values reinstate, and the contents of the solo queue disappear. Block shapes, any tracked shapes will stop from this queue. Other attributes will continue to be tracked. This lets you create a point where you can guarantee all shapes will stop. So let's take a look at that. Here, I've got version 15 of Titan on the Titan Go interface. And see, we got a 6-step queue list here, and we'll just run through it once so we can see everything we have in it. So we have this shape and these fixtures on our spiders. And then we come up here and we've got our BMFLs and our Lecos on. And we go again, we can see that our spiders turn back on with the shape tracking through, and our spots are on, as well as our stage watch lights. Our spots are tracking in from the last queue. If you go again, we can see that everything continues to track through. So we've gone through all of that. If we wanted to change all the queues to be the same, let's say that if we went into options and we selected this queue list, and we wanted to just turn tracking simply to off, and we go ahead and hit exit here and here. Now we can see that our tracking is off and the items are not tracking through. We'll set our options back to on for this playback. And we'll just set individual ones to show how that works here. So if we change our values in Q3, global means it'll follow whatever we had set in the options menu. Track meaning we can turn tracking on for this queue, even if we turned it off in the other menu. Block, as we said, will stop all tracked values and start over basically again from scratch. So if we go ahead and hit go here, we see our spots come on, goes into here. We see our spots don't track in because they've now been blocked by here. And even though our stage watches come up, we hit go again, we see that it does track through into those. So we stopped it coming from Q2 into Q3, so it basically starts tracking over. If we change it from block to solo excluding shapes, and then we hit go here, we see we have our spots come up and our BMFL. So if we go into here, we see our spots go away and our spiders come back on with their shape running because it was solo excluding the shapes. When we hit go again, You see that everything else that was in this queue goes away and goes back to tracking from here. If we change it to queue only, and we hit go on our first queue and go on our second queue, we can see that our wash lights came up as well as our spiders, and the spots are tracking in from Q2, but when we hit go, the spiders turn off as well as our wash lights and continues tracking on from what was in Q2. If we change from queue only to solo, so when we hit go here, we see we have our track values to here. When we hit go into here, we see only what is in this queue, which is our wash lights or spiders coming on, but no shape running because the shape has been taken out with solo. And when we hit go again, what was going on in Q2 tracks through into Q4, but we lose all the tracking that was in Q3, so no side lights and our spiders aren't on anymore. If we change it to block shapes, and we hit our go button here, we can see our circle shape is on, but those lights are on, so we don't see them. When we hit go here, block shapes, we see our spiders come on, but the shape is stopped and no longer running. And we'll change this back to, change it back to global. Shapes tracking. Similar to queue tracking, when a queue is recorded with a shape, it automatically tracks to the next. This can be managed in the column shapes. Here you will be able to view any shapes you have in your queues. You can toggle them to track on, blue, or off, white, to the next. So let's take a look at that. So you see here, we've got a queue list with 6 queues, and our shapes are on and tracking through here. We could turn it off as a queue list as a whole, so if we went into our options and selected our queue list and changed it to off instead of local, and we exit out of here, we can see that it turned off tracking all the way through. You can also turn it back on and see that we have our ability to turn it on and off again. So if we raise our playback up and we hit go, we can see we have a circle shape on our spiders, and we hit go again. We see the circle shape on our spiders is still running, and now additionally our BMFLs have a tilt saw going on. And if we hit go, we can see it continues on through our queue list. So let's say that when we get to Q2 here, we want the circle shape to no longer run. We can simply turn off its tracking here, and we see that it stops running that circle, as well as it does not continue on into any of our other playbacks. Turn it back on, we can see it here. If we wanted it to stop in Q4, we simply click on it here and turn it off. See that our circle shape will continue into Q4, but not into Qs 5 and 6. Same as our tilt, so we had it on in Q2, and we'll turn our tilt off in Q3. When we hit go to Q3, we see that our BMFL stopped their tilt, but our circle continues. So that is tracking in version 15 of Titan. I hope you learned something. Please subscribe. Join us on Facebook at Avolites US, and join us here next time. Thanks. Bye.
Wheel stop.
Roger, wheel stop, Discovery. Welcome back. A great ending to the new beginning.